Yeah. So the thing is, we will start from wherever we have just left in the previous class. SID is enrolled in at most one course. So how we will write frame the logic? We will find out the SIDs of the student who may or may not enroll in the course. Right? It means what? We need to find the SIDs from which table? That is what your student table, not enroll. That is a student table, because in student table we have the SIDs of those students who may or may not be enrolled in the course. If you take this from enroll table, it means what? The student SIDs of those students who are enrolled in at least one course, but that is not required. Right? We need may or may not enroll. So that we will get from student table. SIDs from student table. And difference, at least SIDs enrolled in at least two courses. We know that. Right? So how we can write the query for this one, for this part, we are going to simply project SIDs from where? Student table. Do the difference of this part. So already we have covered the query, relational algebra query for this one. And what's that? From enroll table, we will do the natural join, right? Rename the enroll table, right? Let's say SC and F, and then SIDs. SID equals to S and CID not equals to C. Probably after this, out of this one, we will simply going to project SIDs. So this is the query for enrolled in at most one course here, right? So in this way, we can frame the things here. It's not difficult. The thing is, you need to, you just need a bit of visualization, how you can think of the logic here. Fine. Okay. Probably out of this one, so far we have taken the table, that is the entity set as a student, right? You can just frame out the query for another table, and that is just for a practice. Let's say EMP is our employee table, where we have the EIDs as the employee ID, E name, and some department number. Probably I may ask you to retrieve department number with only one employee. It means what? We need to give the department number of, we need to retrieve the department number basically, right? And which department in which we have only one employee, right? So again, you can just think of the same logic here, and then you can just think to retrieve another query, same department number. Probably this is the part of the first query you will be using, department number with at least two employees, with at least two employees, right? So in this way you can just try it out, and probably in the next class you can just discuss if you have tried to solve these queries as well, right? See, understand the basic thing is, if you really want to go in writing the solving the query in a correct way, just take the example, right? Out of this employee table, just take some values and then try to retrieve or say the frame relational algebra here. That will be very easy for you, and probably you will end up with a correct query. Fine. So yeah, that's it. With this we have successfully finished our relational algebra. But wait, we haven't yet done with relational algebra, because these things will still continue until and unless we are not reached to the next topic, that's your normalization, right? That meaning what? Again, we are going to look into the queries of relational algebra in TRC and DRC as well. Fine. Okay, so let's start now with a fresh topic, that is our still now what we have covered actually: procedural language, procedural queries, right? We have covered. That's what your relational algebra is or are about, right? The second one is non-procedural. And in this part, we have our TRC plus DRC. These are a calculus. Understand this procedural query, we have already covered the basic difference between these two. Still, again, we can just revise both of them. What's the basic difference between procedural and non-procedural query? right? You should know. It's the difference between the formulation part. When we formulate the queries for procedural, we know how to retrieve the data. We should know how to retrieve the data, and along with that, we also know what data will be retrieved from our database table, right? So we know what we will retrieve and how we will retrieve. Both of the information we know in procedural queries, and that's what we have the relational algebra part here. But in non-procedural, what we have in this one, we formulate what data retrieved from our database table, basically, right? Or we can say that here we will tell what we want actually, right? What output we want, but how we will get that information is not explained in your non-procedural language. And that's why it's a non-procedure, right? We are not going to have any certain procedure, right? Rather, we are going to have statements here, right? I told you what's the difference between the algebra and calculus here. The procedural language, procedural queries contains your algebra, that's relational algebra. But in non-procedural, we have our calculus part, right? So it's not like when we talk about calculus here, it's like the mathematical calculus. No, it's the database calculus. And in terms of database calculus, when we talk about, basically we deal with some relational calculus. Right, the relational calculus here is your tuple relational calculus and domain relational calculus. This is further divided into two categories. This is what formally called as DRC and TRC here, right? In tuple relational calculus, SQL queries almost, and remember, right? SQL queries, whatever SQL query that we will do after post completion of this topic, formally they will be using TRC rather than DRC, right? DRC, basically domain relational calculus, is almost uses something called as QBE. It uses QBE, right? So basically QB is nothing here, query by language. This is typical term which is called as query by example, basically query by example, right? So QBE almost uses DRC, but your SQL, that is your structure query language, it uses your TRC, right? So for the timing, you should keep this in mind, right? When we'll do the SQL, probably we will be using the concept of TRC there rather than DRC, right? So we will see a bit more in depth about TRC rather than DRC. Again, we will see as an informational part what actually used to have in DRC here. Fine. So hopefully you have understood this thing. So now let's switch to TRC. Tuple relational calculus. Right. Okay. So we have already seen this. The TRC basically tells what data we have to retrieve here, right? So again, for this tuple relational calculus, we have a certain, a kind of syntax that we have, right? For these queries, as we have seen in relational algebra, we have different operators here, right? So with the help of operators, and we apply these operators within the tables, and we found the relational algebra. In the same way, for TRC, we have a certain syntax which is formally written as something in the curly braces. This is a one pipeline, and we have two parts here, right? So the first part is basically this first part is basically your tuple variable that we used to call tuple variables. And the second part is something, let's say P of T, right? This something part, this P of T is basically your formula, right? Here P is well-formed formula. If you are familiar with this term, well-formed formula in your discrete mathematics, WFF, if you remember this thing, right? So we have this P as a function, or say well-formed formula over tuple T, that is tuple variable T, right? So we call this WFF in your mathematical logic. So if this is a formula, then definitely it involves some operations here, right? It involves some operations. For the timing, just keep this thing in mind. We'll explain and we'll understand all of you when we'll move on to the, in depth of this topic, right? For the timing, understand this. This is the syntax that you should know. Involves operations like what? Like we have disjunction, conjunction, negation. There exist quantifiers. We will see all those things and belongs to something like this. That probably you know, right? So this is what we have the general syntax of your TRC. That is your tuple relational calculus. We have the first tuple variable. This is something like out of the table. Understand? Out of the table, you want to apply some query, right? And you want to return your desired output, right? For example, you want to return some tuple values, right? These are the tuples, rows we say, right? So what you will retrieve, this should be written here. That is as a tuple variable, right? How you will retrieve that? Probably you apply some formula. That formula will be written here. That is p of a t, or how we will expand this in later part, right? So this p of t is p as a well-formed formula WFF over your tuple variable t, right? Okay. So before starting of this one, moving ahead in the topic, let's understand about quantifiers, because this quantifiers plays a very important role when you will write a TRC query, right? In this quantifiers, we have two type of quantifier. This is now what we are going in some inside the discrete mathematics part here, right? So quantifiers are basically of two type. First one is called your existential quantifier, right? And the second is called your universal quantifier. Existential and universal quantifier, right? So there are two quantifiers we can use with formula to tell how many instances the predicate applies to, right? So in how many instances, these are in instances basically a tuple variable. So how many tuple variables or instances we can apply the formula. So basically these quantifiers are included inside your formulas here rather than here, right? So in this one, the first one, that is your existential, we have something called as there exist, and we write this something like this way, right? Probably you are familiar with this one, there exist. So this there exists is used in formula, right? And meaning what? It must be true for at least one instance, right? For example, if I say there exists x and then some function f of x, it means says what? X must be true. F of x should say that x must be true for some value, right? For example, if I say uh, there exists s, right, and belongs to, let's say, some table student, it means what? Whatever s value we are having, it should belong to a student table, right? Probably it can be there exist. There exist means formally in English we say there exist means at least one. At least one means there should, it should be there, at least one should be present here. That is for your quantifier, existential quantifiers says about, right? It must be true for at least one instance. Now for universal quantifier we use for all, and we used to write this in this expression v and then this inclined line, something like this, right? So for all, it applied to statement about every instance. This is applied to every instance now. So in the table, let's say this is my database table where I have certain tuples here, right? So when I apply to the tuple here, for example, I want to search some tuple, right? I have applied this formula over some tuple that is for x. X is giving my instance of my this relational table, right? So this f of x probably be true for at least one value of x. This is what this existential quantifier says. In this one here, this existential quantifier, this universal quantifier says what? For all x, for example, f of x. It means what? This f of x function should be true for every value of x. So this variable, tuple variable, will move and check every row, every tuple of this function here, right? That's why it is called as a universal quantifier. For example, if we move on to the previous example, for example, we have the student table in which we have sid, right? Sid, and let's say s name and followed by some age, right? We are continuing our previous example. If I say there exists s is my tuple variable that belongs to student. So here I am talking about a certain a tuple here basically, right? In the table instance, s is my one instance of my student table, and I am saying this student name, whosoever student I'm just pointing out in the student table, the name of the student, that is s dot name, let's say, should be equal to some Matthias. This is what the name that I have given. I want to retrieve, right? The query probably can be like retrieve the student ID of the student whose name is Matthias, right? So this is what how we will write this one. This s is my instance, that is tuple variable, who belongs to the student table, and s dot whose name is Matthias. So and you can just write in this way. Probably you may or you know or you don't know, but this is what we have from one but your trc query, right? This is what my complete formula, and what I want s dot, let's say, sid. So in this way you can just form, right? But before that we will understand this in depth, but before that let's understand more about uh, this part about existential and universal quantifiers, right? Okay, so understand, let's say I'm saying here, probably if you remember when we were doing relational algebra, I told you about the set difference, but not. I told you, but not in relational algebra is denoted by what? Set difference, that is this one. But not in your calculus. But not in calculus. How we are going to write but not in calculus? That's, let's say we have one proposition P and Q. I say P but not Q. That is what? P and negation Q. This is how we used to use but not in calculus part. This should be focused. Okay, just let me. Right. So in the calculus, we write P and but not Q. That is and negation Q here. Right. Okay. Understand. I'm just writing some example here. Probably you should be able to understand P or Q. P or Q, right? We have all of we have some information about digital logics and design, where we have understood about truth table of certain variables P and Q, something like this one, right? So what should be the output and all. So here, let's say P is my one proposition, Q is my another proposition. I'm saying P or Q, right? If I negate all this, if I negate P or Q, it double implication. All of you know, if P double implication Q means if P gives Q is true and Q gives P is also true, means in both the direction we have the implication. That's double implication. So means have both meaning. If I write in this one, in this statement, I can write this one something like this: negation P and negation Q. Both of the statement are quite true here, right? These are the small things that probably you might need when you will write trc queries, right? The same goes for, let's say, P and Q here. It means what? Negation P or negation Q. So the symbols, disjunction, conjunction symbols basically interchange with each other when we take negation inside, right? So this is what important and probably you may need when you will write trc queries there. Right. Okay. To understand this example, let us take another example. For example, let's take some numerical values and then try to understand how these queries are equivalent with each other. I'm saying, let's say x is my one variable, right? I'm saying x is not between some number. Let's say x is not between 5 and 10. I want to write this statement in a mathematical logic way, that is using this statement in this format, right? So this x is not between 5 and 10 can be symbolically written as, understand, I'm writing in this format. Probably x is my one variable, that is x is greater than 5. If I'm saying x is greater than 5 here, and I am saying x is less than 10, it means what? X is somewhere around between 5 and 10. Yes or no? if I completely negate this statement, it means what? X is not less than X is not greater than 5 and X is not less than 10. If I negate this statement, right? Now this statement is quite equivalent. This is quite equivalent to understand. I'm just expanding now. I have written this in this format, the second example right here, right? If I take negation inside, probably it will be something like this. 5 is less than X, or this and will change into or, and negation X is less than 10. This means what? X greater than 5 is not. That means that X is not greater than 5, or X is not less than 10. It means what? X should be what? Less than equal to 5, or it can be X greater than equal to 10. Isn't it? This statement is saying this one. Right. So this is what we have, changed this one equivalent statement. We have written the equivalent statement for this to this one here. The meaning is same. If my number is not in between 5 and 10, then probably my number should be less than 5, or it can be greater than 10, equal to, less than equal to, or greater than equal to this one here. Right. So in this way, we can formulate both of these statements here. Right. Another format for this one, this the same example, if we continue this first part, the second part is here. If we continue with this one, I say negation P implies Q. This statement is true and fro equivalent to P and negation Q here. Probably you all of you might have heard about De Morgan's law in your digital logics. This is what the same it is, right? So how this one is equivalent to this one, probably you can try now by your own. This is quite easy. Just take negation inside, right? And negation is always true here. Negation of negation P is basically your P here, right? Probably you might need this one. Okay, so this is what you can try by your own, the proof for this logic, although it's not required. Now let's move on to another important part here. This is what important, understand the third point. And what's that? I have the situation like this for all X. Understand now what's the role of negation with quantifiers that we have. For all X, I'm saying P of X. It means what? P of X. Understand one basic thing. If you have the knowledge of discrete mathematics and propositional logics, if I'm writing P of X, that's it. It means what? P of X is true. But if I write negation P of X, it means what? P of X is false, or another term is not true. Understand, these two things are quite different here. We cannot say these two are same. False is not equals to not true. Will explain you later on, right? Understand now, I have the scenario for all X, I have P of X true. If I put negation here, now this term is quite equivalent to what? There exists X such that negation P of X. See, I have converted my quantifier, universal quantifier, to existential quantifier. This is how the effect of negation is. When the negation will penetrate over one quantifier, it will transform into different quantifier, and it will attach to the rest of the predicate, or say your formula, well-formed formula. In the same way, if I have something like there exists X, such of P of X, such that P of X, and if I negate here, it implies what? It's equivalent to for all X, I have negate P of X. Yes or no? Right? Understand, I'm just explaining one point here, how this one is true. Let us take this part. Try to understand how these are equivalent. I mean, how universal can be translated into existential. Understand? I have negation for all X P of X. Try to understand. This is very, very important thing here. All of you just pay attention properly. right? Because these are very minute things, and probably you miss whenever you try to write the query, or whenever you try to go into in-depth queries when you will write the RC or relational algebra, probably the SQL part as well, because this is the basic mathematics behind your database, right? I'm saying for all x p of x and then negation, it means what? P of x is not true. P of x is not true. I haven't included false here. I am saying P of x is not true for every x. P of x is not true for every x. I haven't says P of x is false for every x. No, right? Because there is a difference. We'll tell you. For example, to prove this statement, I am saying that I have some value A. Let's say I have some value A, and for this some value A, P of A is not true. For some value A, P of A is not true. It means what? Negation of P of A is true. If P of A is not true, then negation of P of A is true. Understand this part here. For example, if I say negation of P of A is false, negation of P of A is false, then negation of this is what? True. Because negation of negation cancel out a kind of cancellation, and then we are left with only P condition that is true here, right? Quite similar way, I'm just saying if P of A, for some A, P of A is not true, then negation of P of A will be true here, right? And if this is true, it implies what? It implies there exists some x. See, there exists some x for which negation of P of A, or say P of x, is true. Let's say P of x is true. Again, I'm just thinking you might not have understood, right? There is another alternate way to make you understood for this statement here by taking an example. And with the help of example, remember the database becomes quite easy to understand, right? I'm just taking an example here, and to make both of the statement understand to you. For example, I have a set. This is, let's say I have set, and I have certain values, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and probably 10 here, right? So just don't afraid, and these things are quite easy once you have understood the logics here. How? Let's understand. This is my set, and every element of set I'm just pointing by variable, something called as x here. Understand, this is just analogous, and I'm just making understand in a discrete mathematics way, but you can formulate, or you can do as an analogous to this problem formulation. How? This set might be my table, and x is my tuple variable, right? In the same way, now understand, then there should be some function as well, wff, well form function. I'm saying that this P of x is my well form function, which is taking the values in between certain range. For example, if I'm taking 2 to 8, x is having from 1 to 10, my P of x is saying x value is from 2 to 8, including 2 and 8, right? Now understand this first statement. See, I am writing negation for all x P of x. What I told, P of x is not true for every x. Is this so? Is this statement saying right? P of x is not true for every x. Yes, it is right, because P of x is not true for x equal to 1, 9, and 10. Because in this range, 1, 9, and 10 are missing here. So this P of x is not true for x equals to 1, 9, 10. Yes or no? Right? So yes, it is false. It is false for values x equals to 1, 9, and 10. Right? Now understand the second part of this one here. I am saying there exists x, which is negation of P of x. Right? So understand, it means what? P of x is false for some x. Again, P of x is false for some x. Yeah, it is false for what values? X equals to 1, 9, and 10. Yes or no? So this is what? There exists some x. I'm writing for x here. but it is saying in a converse way, in opposite way, it is not true for every x. Yeah, it is not true for this one. And here specifically we are saying it is not true for those values, and those values are there exist x, at least some values of x, right? Understand, let me again tell you, and going through this one, why I have used not true here rather than false for here. If I say p of x is false for every x, is this true statement? Just try to understand. P of x is false. If I say p of x is not true, instead I say p of x is false for every x. Is that so? No. P of x is not false for every x. Why? Because p of x is true for this range. So that's why I have said p of x is not true. It doesn't mean it is false for every. So remember, and for all, that is what universal quantifier. Understand, when we have universal quantifier for all of x and then negation of something, some values, right? We do not read this in this way that for all x it is false. Right. This is because the thing is, when we have certain statement, this formula, how we will read this formula completely change on before this quantifier that we have used. Right. Okay, understand. Let me prove for this statement as well for second one, then you will understand in better way. For example, I have said negation, there exists x p of x. It means, well, p of, now in this case I can say anything because there is certain the quantifier is existential here. I say p of x is not true for some x, right? P of x is not true for some x. I'm writing here p of x is not true for some x. I have written this statement. Now see this statement, I'm writing this also, p of x is false for some x. I have changed this not true to false here. See, when we have the existential quantifier, we can change not true to false. There is no issue. Understand? P of x is false for some x, or say P of x is not true for some x. Yeah, that is right. P of x is not true for x equals to 1, 9, and 10. Or say P of x is false. Again, P of x is false for 1, 9, 10. Right? But if I have used here this one, negation for all x p of x, let me write again in this way, you will understand. I'm saying p of x is not true for, not some, for all x. This is one statement. Other is p of x is not true. Instead of not true, if I write false for all x. See, there is a big difference between these two. I am saying p of x is not true for all x. Okay, that's fine. P of x is not true for all x. But if I say p of x is false for all x, it means say for every value of x, we are saying p of x is false. But according to this one, no, that's contradiction. So that's why you cannot use such statement when you have universal quantifier, because whenever whatever your decision you are taking here, that will be applied universally here, not on certain values, specific values here, particular ones. Right? Okay. So the second part for this one here, in this example, we have this. For all x, I can alternatively, I can rewrite this statement from here. For all x, negation p of x. So p of x, my p of x is not true for all x. This is what the reading was. Yeah, definitely, and it's right. P of x is not true for x equals to 1, 9, and 10. P of x is not true for all x, right? It is not true because these are excluded in that category. So this is the way how we read the statement here in your discrete mathematics, this part, right? So understand, when we have the negation, see how and where these things will come up, right? For example, understand, let's give a practical example equivalently for your SQL part. I am saying I want to retrieve all the values of s, right, whose age is s dot age is not equals to 20. I want to retrieve all the values of s. For all s belongs to some table where s dot is not equals to 20. Can I write this statement in this way? Negation, there exists some there exists some s for s dot is equals to 20 with negation here. See, these statements are equivalent, right? Here it is saying s dot is equal to 20. This statement is false for some x, so for some s, and we are actually retrieving those s in which s dot is not equals to 20, and this is what's specified here, right? So this is the way how we used to practically implement these things here, right? Equivalent to this part, where this part here, we have some other formulations as well with implications, right? For example, understand the fourth one here. Negation of for all x, I am saying p of x implies q of x. uh, I hope all of you know the truth table for implication part and all those things, right? Okay, just let me give you an overview here. See, this is p q, right? Probably let's take true 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 false false true and false false. If I say p implies q, what should be the output here? Understand? See, there is a way, probably everyone have a different way, but there is my way. I know how I remember these things here, especially for p implies q here. See, true true true. In this one, when true says you are false, this is focus, yeah. True says you are false, that is true implies false, then false, and the rest all are true. P says to Q that you are false, that is T implies F, that is F. Rest all are true. In double implication, right? In double implication, when both the things are same, probably true and false and false, we have the true scenarios. Other than that, we have the false, right? This is what the logic table formulation. Probably you have already covered this in digital logics, digital electronics part. Okay, understand now. This statement is a double implication of what I can write. Again, when this negation will penetrate universal quantifier, it will become existential quantifier, that is there exists x. And when negation will go inside this implication, we have p of x and negation of q of x. Again, this came from De Morgan's law. If you really go on in depth, then probably you can go through De Morgan's law, where how we, negation when goes inside the implication transform to this one here, right? Along with this one, we have the same statement for existential, that is negation there exists x, and I say p of x and q of x, something like this one, right? This is double implication to what? For all x, I am saying p of x implies a negation of q of x, right? So I hope if you have understood these things, right? This is compared logical, thinking that you can just build up. If you really have understood these things, then definitely you are not going to have the formulation parts, the logical part, when you will define your TRC or whether it's DRC, even it's SQL part here, right? I think this is more than sufficient to understand the existential quantifier and your universal quantifier and the role of negation here, right? So I hope if you still have any issue, you can just let me know. You need to revise, yeah, definitely, because all of you already have gone through your module. That is that's what discrete structures or say discrete mathematics. And if you still face any issue, probably you can just revise, go through it once, right? And just let me know if you face any issue. Coming up to TRC part, okay, let's just stop it here to finish this one here. Let's understand about TRC formulation now. Tuple relational calculus, how we will form the TRC, expressions and formula, right? Okay, I have, due to the shortage of time, I have somewhere already written this one here. If you can see, yeah, the expressions and formula for your TRC, right? Understand an expression in this is the formal definition of TRC, right? So no one gonna ask you what is the definition of TRC. Rather than they're gonna ask you, you need to formulate based on the given query, given statement. You need to formulate the query. But just for understanding, you should know how the expressions and formulas are being applied to a generalized TRC query, right? So expressions and formulas in an expression in a TRC is of the following form, right? So any TRC that we will write probably will be of the form like this one: S1 dot A1, S2 dot A2, and so on. Let's say Sn dot An. And then we have some function f of S1, S2, and so on till Sm. This is n here, this is m. So your m should be greater than equal to n. The conditions here. You cannot use those tuples. See, this is what I have just told in the beginning. This is what we actually want to retrieve from the database. The query actually retrieve. For example, I say select S name. So it means what I'm retrieving S name here, right? If I say project SID, it means what I'm projecting SID. So whatever I want to project, it should be written here, right? So this is what actually called your free tuple variable. We will see that later on, right? So for just to see the formulation and this expressions here, this is what the general expression that we have for any TRC, where each SI or your tuple variable, SI means S1 2 till n, are your tuple variable of the relation over what are A. These are the attributes, right? If I say S dot name, that means what? S is my tuple variable and name is my attribute here, right? Over attribute A. So it is written here as well. So SI are tuple variables of relation over attribute A. F is a formula, that is what W, well-formed formula, which is made out of one or more atomic formulas. Understand, right? Your formula is not formulated in a one. Your complete formula will be of some atomic formulas, right? It's a combination of atomic formulas, and your formulas are combined together with the help of certain operations, right? See here, what are those atomic formulas? These atomic formulas can be something like this: R belongs to relation. If I say for all S belongs to relation, this one, right? Relation, for example, if I say for all S belongs to student, this one. So this is what my one formula, atomic formula actually. This statement means this one here. If I say R dot A, OP, R dot B, right? OPs can be any operation, the whether it is conjunctive, disjunctive, or any operation that we have. R dot A, OP, R dot B, or you can say R dot A, OP, S dot B. R and S are here what tuple variables, A and B are your attributes here, right? Third one is R dot AOP constant. Even it can be a constant value. For example, S dot A is greater than 20 and something like that. Or it can be constant OPS dot B, to and fro, any combination. If you have all these first three, then your atomic formula can be made with the help of these. Right. Fourth point we will see. Right. So first, these three formulas give your atomic formulation for your expression f of S1, S2, and Sm. This f can be the combination of these, right? So a formula recursively, we say the formula recursively defined to be one of the following, right? I'm just writing here a formula recursively means any time probably you can change based on requirement here, defined to be one of the following, let's say, where we will see what are those, where P and Q themselves, we will understand with the help of P and Q. P and Q are, let's say, some predicate conditions. P and Q themselves are formula, right? Understand what is the first one, any atomic formula. Now we define the complete recursive formula. This is what complete this one, this F. Right now we have seen this F can be the combination of atomic formulas, right? Now this atomic formula altogether will give you the recursive formula for complete F function. And what can be those? any atomic formula. It can be combination of any atomic formula, this complete formula, right? The second possibility is if we have something, some constraint, or say some more or less we say some predicate conditions, then negation P, P conjunction or disjunction Q, something like this one, and even P implies Q as well. If we have the combination of these, is can also formulate your recursively formula here. The third possibility is there exists S for some f of S. S is my tuple variable and f is my well-formed formula, right? If I have there exist as f of S, where S is what? Tuple variable, where S is tuple variable. If we have this possibility as well, we can formulate, we can count down into a well-formed formula. There is another one last possibility, that is for all. This is for existential quantifier and this is for all, as we have f of S, and again S is my tuple variable. So my complete formula, complete recursive formula can be the combination of any atomic formula. Atomic formulas are all these that we have seen, three. Then it can be even negation Q, it can be any P and Q, P or Q, even P implies Q, or it can be the combination of existential and universal quantifiers as well, right? So this is what all this is what finally gave you a definition or an expression formula for your tuple relational calculus, right? Okay, let's understand with the help of, now let's see how we will formulate a single query here using TRC. I just want you to write the relational algebra for, I want to retrieve the record. You need to retrieve the record of student whose, retrieve the record of students whose age is greater than 20. Retrieve the record of the student whose age is greater than 20. For example, we have the student table at stud student. I will select, I need to retrieve all the details, right? Then definitely I need to perform the selection operation, and we have already seen the selection operation works on tuples and the projection operation works on your attributes, features, or say the columns, right? So we will select from the student whose age is greater than 20. This is what my relational algebra that we have understood so far, quite easy. But if I want to formulate the tuple relational TRC, tuple relational calculus query for this one, understand how I will write. I have a table student. This is the student table. Focus. Right. So this is what my student table, right? So what I have to write here now is, in this relational algebra, we have already seen we need to retrieve with age greater than 20, right? This student, let's say I am writing, this is something called as alias of your table. That is, you are accessing the table name with the help of different variable, that is, let's say T. I am saying that with the student table, if I write T, probably it will point out to instance of my student table, and that is, we can say the tuple variable as well at the same point of time. I am saying my tuple variable T belongs to student. It means what? With the help of T, I can access to the attribute of my student table. And what I actually want is T dot age should be greater than 20. Yes or no? Right, T is my the instance of my tuple, instance of my table, that's a tuple variable, and I'm saying T dot age, the attribute name should be greater than 20, right? So these are what my atomic relation, these are my atomic relations, right? If I say this is PP and this is Q, then P and Q, because I need both, right? I hope you are able to understand, you are able to formulate things that we have done. Where it is, here, right? P and Q in this way, right? And atomic formulas, these are my atomic formula, let's say P and Q, right? And now out of these, what I actually want is the my tuple variable, that is T. And this is how we formulate our TRC. Right? See, this is very informative. You actually know what you are going to retrieve. This is what non-procedural, right? You know what you are going to retrieve, but how you are going to retrieve, that's still abstractions here. That's why this is non-procedural. Right? See, in this one, this tuple variable, let's understand more about these tuple variables here. Your tuple variables will take another 2-3 minutes. The tuple variables are basically of two types. The first one is called your free tuple variable. Free tuple variable, right? These are basically the universal variables which are not bounded by quantifier, not bounded by quantifiers, right? Can you tell in this statement, this one, the variable t is your free tuple variable because there is no quantifier. If I say here for all t belongs to student, if I say for all t belongs to student, now this t is my bounded, no more free. So that is other term which is called as bounded tuple variable. And what are those bounded tuple variables? Which are the variables which are bounded by quantifiers, right? Bounded by quantifiers. Understood? So and remember one thing, these tuple variables, always remember, must be your free variable. This tuple variable cannot be your bounded variable, but this part you can have bounded as well as free tuple variables, right? Okay, more actually we have to solve more examples, and probably it will take one more extra class where we will now try solving the queries here. We will formulate around 6 to 7 queries, and we'll write the TRCs for them respectively, and that we will be doing in the next class. I hope all of you have understood. If still you don't have if you still have any some issues, right, you are not able to understand, or any other kind of issue you have, you want to repeat those things, you can just let me know, and probably you can just rewind and watch what we have covered so far, right? So okay, that's it for today. We will continue probably in the next class. Here we'll start from where we have left.